If you weren't the CEO's daughter, I wouldn't date you. Such a plain girl like you. He said that and drenched my head in beer. His abusive words wouldn't stop. Maybe he had too much to drink. I couldn't believe the situation I was in, and I just stood there, unable to respond to his insults. My apologies for keeping you waiting. But his complexion changed at the sound of a voice from behind. Without turning around, I got into the car as suggested. My name is Lydia. As the daughter of a company CEO, I've been treated like a delicate object since I was a kid. I was tired of adults changing their attitudes when they saw my father's presence behind me. Being a quiet child who preferred being alone. As I grew up, I began trying to blend in with the atmosphere around me. I suppressed myself, trying to remain inconspicuous. Even the friends I made through such efforts would distance themselves from me once they learned about my father's job. I used to resent my father's profession, but my perspective changed when I entered a university and started studying business. Through university lectures, I began to understand the difficulty of achieving long-term stable performance like my father. I started to take an interest in my father's company. Hearing about my father's passions and thoughts about the company, my interest grew, and I deepened my learning.
You've been getting good grades in school, and it seems like you have a decent knack for business too. So I guess it wouldn't be a bad idea to let you run the company someday, my father says.
If that's the case, I thought, I would like to create a company culture where the distance between employees is close and everything can be discussed openly. Having had lonely experiences in my childhood, I longed for an atmosphere where everyone could speak freely, regardless of their title or position. It would be wonderful if I could make the company like that when I became the CEO. The evening downtown area is bustling with various people. I check that the clock hand is pointing at 6:50, and I breathe a sigh of relief. I always wanted to arrive before Cooper for our meetups. I take out a small mirror and fix my bangs. While I'm at it, I also reposition my permed hair and the light blue hair ornament. As I throw the mirror back into my handbag, I catch sight of Cooper in a suit, making his way through the crowd. I wave back at Cooper, who is smiling. The place we enter is our usual chain pub. We order simple snacks and draft beer and toast. I loved spending Friday nights chatting about work or just random stuff in this casual place. Cooper and I started dating in our senior year of college, and it's almost 2 years now. We got together because we joined the same seminar. Cooper noticed me, who was quietly hiding in everyone's shadow, and talked to me. Cooper is good at conversation and casually brightens up the atmosphere. I'm a lucky person to be dating him. The planning department at the head office is tough after all. There's a lot of overtime, but the satisfaction makes it worth continuing, Cooper said, finishing his drink, his face showing he had quite a bit to drink. I think being assigned to the planning department means they have expectations of you, Cooper. You're amazing. When will you stop working at the factory, Lydia? If you get transferred to the head office, we could have lunch together. After graduating from the university, I asked my father, who is the CEO, to let me work in the factory. I had a strong desire to know the field. I'd love to have lunch with you, Cooper, but I like working in the factory, and it suits me. Really? I think you're more suited to working at the head office, dressed up and not in work clothes. Cooper looks at me, as if gauging my reaction. That's not true. I feel comfortable in my work clothes, Cooper. Can we order more food? I'm getting hungry. Something feels off. I managed to sidestep it, but lately, I have the feeling that Cooper wants to say something. Could he have found out that I'm the daughter of the CEO? The thought suddenly crosses my mind, and I feel a chill down my spine. I remember how my friends drifted away once they found out I was the CEO's daughter. I didn't want to go through that again. I couldn't tell Cooper that I was the CEO's daughter, and he must never find out. Being swayed on a sparsely populated down train, I was gazing out the window. Enjoying the scenery beyond the glass was my daily routine during my commute. It's a beautiful Monday. As the train moves, The scenery changes from a landscape lined with gray buildings to one rich with greenery and trees. My stop is soon after we cross a particularly large river. The river's surface shimmers, reflecting a vibrant blue. I catch a glimpse of a middle-aged man and a puppy crossing the bridge, their figures shrinking in the distance.
Good morning, Lydia. You're early.
I was greeted by a coworker as I exited the station gates. Good morning. I always come at this time on Mondays. It's Austin, 2 years older than me. He's a friendly person who started talking to me on my first day at work, and he's been very helpful in many ways. We make small talk as we head to the factory. After getting prepared and arriving at my post, the workday begins. It was supposed to be a usual day with usual tasks. However, an unexpected accident occurred. It was just before the afternoon work began, right after lunch break. At that time, my father, the CEO, happened to be on a factory tour. Coming out of the break room, I bumped into my father, who asked me to pass on a message to my mother. It seems he had left his smartphone at home. He said he could have sent the message from his computer, but it would have been a hassle, so he was glad he could ask me. After sending off my father to the workshop, I turned around, and to my surprise, there was Austin. He was peeking through the conference room door, which was half open.
Wait, Lydia, you're the CEO's daughter?
What should I do? Austin had asked me. I tried to hastily make an excuse, but nothing comes to mind. Regret over casually chatting with my father wells up. Austin is sure to change his attitude towards me from now on. Word might spread around the factory, and everyone might start keeping their distance from me. Various thoughts swirl around, and I'm left stammering. Then Austin says,
"If that's the case, there's something I'd like your help with, Lydia. There are various systems I want changed. Could you tell the CEO for me?"
I was taken aback by Austin's unchanged demeanor, but I found myself interested in what he was talking about. What kind of systems are you talking about? When I asked, Austin gave a brief explanation. I wanted to know more, but it was almost time for work to start. We decided to discuss the details after work and return to our posts. We both hurried to our respective workstations. Even after finding out I was the CEO's daughter, Austin didn't change his attitude towards me. On the contrary, he acted as if it was no big deal. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders as I climbed the stairs to the workshop. Now, I'm sitting across from Austin at a fast food restaurant near the station. Our conversation from earlier in the day has taken an unexpected turn. To put it bluntly, Austin's hope was for decision-making power to be given to the factory floor. He explained that in the current system, any changes to the standard manual requires approval from headquarters. This is necessary even for the most minor changes. After the factory submits a request for approval, an inspection is conducted by headquarters. It then takes time to receive approval. Often, by the time approval is granted, the situation has changed and the change is no longer necessary. However, it takes effort to cancel the application. While finishing his double cheeseburger, Austin said, "So, Lydia, I was thinking of asking the CEO, but that's impossible, right? Still, I can't help but wonder if there's something we could do." I was hesitant. I wasn't sure if this was something I could ask my father. Well, asking the CEO might be difficult, but it does seem like the situation should be changed.
Right? You think so too?
Let's take action. Let's document all past incidents and submit them. We can express our hopes and have them considered at headquarters. I wonder if it will work. Seeing Austin's uncertainty, I start trying to persuade him. Let's just give it our best shot.
Well, nothing's gonna change if we just sit here talking about it.
Starting the next day, we involved our superiors and began gathering information from around the factory. It was tough to juggle with our daily tasks, but our diligent efforts paid off, and we finished the document several months later. We entrusted it to our superiors to match the timing of a general meeting at headquarters, and took a sigh of relief. While I was drinking a canned drink and taking a break, a colleague came up to me. "I heard you finished the document. Good job!" Since we had gone around all the departments in the factory gathering information, everyone knew what was going on. We finally finished. I hope this brings about change. I'm sure it will be fine. But I was surprised by your initiative, Lydia. You really do have the CEO's blood in you. Wait, how do you know about that? Sorry, I heard it from Austin. I was curious about why you were taking action. Don't worry, I'm the only one who knows. Is that so? Although I felt a bit complicated, I thought my colleague was telling the truth. It'd be great if you became the CEO, Lydia. You're very diligent and hardworking, and you really went above and beyond for the factory this time. I could never be the CEO. When I laughed it off, my colleague laughed along, saying, I guess so. This person, with laughter lines appearing at the corner of his eyes, is a veteran who has been working at the factory for more than 20 years. He, like Austin, treated me with a consistent demeanor, a constant calmness and brightness that never changed. Several months later, our superior returned from the general meeting and loudly called everyone to gather. What's going on? The employees who gathered asked. The authority at the site has been partially changed. Hearing these words, the employees began to murmur. I instinctively looked for Austin. Then, on the outskirts of the crowd, he noticed my gaze and responded with a triumphant pose. Although not all of our wishes were granted, it seemed fair to say that nearly half of them were. That day, everyone took turns congratulating me, and I felt very happy. Filled with a sense of achievement and even more motivation, I am enjoying fulfilling days. Then, one day, I was called to headquarters by my father. Wondering why he called me out of the blue, I leave my afternoon work behind and head to the headquarters. Once I enter the CEO's office, my father praises my recent accomplishments. Though I didn't mention anything to him, he seemed to have looked into the situation. Apparently, this incident significantly boosted the company's numbers, and after my father had a good laugh, he made a serious face and said to me, Lydia, you have a sense for management and vitality. How about you start taking over the role of CEO in earnest? Hearing my father's words, I thought that I wanted to give it a try. A workplace where employees are vibrant because their opinions are heard and improvements are made. If I become CEO, I can move things on a larger scale. I can make it as comfortable as possible to work. But with that, the responsibility also becomes heavier. I might have almost made up my mind, but I asked him to let me think about it and went home that day. I questioned myself alone in my room. Can I really do it? Can I fulfill this responsibility? I had trouble falling asleep that night, and the next morning, despite the lack of sleep, I visited my father at the headquarters with a clear mind. About our conversation yesterday, I would like to take on the role. I appreciate your trust in me. I bowed deeply. My father said, That's great. Thank you. And started talking about the future schedule. What? Lydia's gonna be the CEO? Austin, please don't raise your voice so much. Only Austin and I were in the break room during lunch break. Thinking the timing was just right, I told him about my decision to become CEO. Sorry. But I never thought you'd really become CEO. Everyone will be surprised. That's the thing. I think I'll be transferred to the headquarters soon, and I've been worried about how to explain it to everyone. Why not just tell them the truth? I'm a little scared to tell them I'm the CEO's daughter. Taking a deep breath, I shared the events of the past. About how close friends had drifted away, the sadness I felt when people were distant with me, and about my childhood when I tended to close off my heart. Austin, who listened to my story with compassion, said this, There might be people who can't interact with you the same way as before, Lydia. We can't know for sure. But everyone knows how hard you've worked this time. I think they trust you. Plus, surprisingly, many people might not change their attitude. Could that be true? Although I felt somewhat relieved hearing Austin say that, My heavy memories were rejecting any further thoughts. In the end, I only gave a vague reply. When I checked my smartphone on the way home from work, I had a message from Cooper. I hadn't seen Cooper in a while. Just when I thought I had some breathing room from being busy with document preparation for the headquarters, Cooper's peak season had started. It's not just about everyone at the factory. I need to think about Cooper too. Swaying on the train, I let out a sigh. Could I really say the truth from my own mouth? What would happen if I told them? After a while, the dates of my transfer to the headquarters was confirmed. I would be leaving the factory in a few weeks. Unsure of how to tell everyone, I spontaneously dropped by the document room. In the dusty room where various documents were stored, I opened a cardboard box near the entrance and pulled out a thick bundle tied with a black string. It was my work diary from the past. Looking back from my first day of work, forgotten memories come back. The times when I was a novice who knew neither left nor right. When I was taught work carefully. When a senior colleague spoke to me as I learned the job. And when someone treated me to canned coffee when I was down about making a mistake. As I looked at the diary, my mind became set. It's not about whether they accept me or not. I'll convey the truth with gratitude for everything so far, and sincerity. With that decided, I left the document room. On Monday's morning assembly, I was to tell my colleagues about my transfer. Prompted by my boss, I stepped forward and bowed. Wondering what it was about, everyone was waiting for me to speak. Austin and a colleague who knew the situation were watching from the back of the circle. I told them that I was the CEO's daughter and that I was going to take over the company, and I expressed my gratitude. To my surprise, I was able to say it smoothly, as if I had never been troubled. While being surprised at myself, I looked at everyone's reactions. While they seemed to be shocked, Austin raised his voice saying congratulations, and more voices of agreement followed. Somehow the atmosphere softened, and I felt relieved. I gratefully received the encouraging words, feeling refreshed. Later, everyone invited me out for drinks. They said it was a celebration for my becoming CEO, so we headed to a pub, much like a year-end party. The large number of participants made me so happy, I felt like crying. I felt confident that I was being accepted to this extent. Since it was a celebration, they booked a different restaurant than usual, and we all got on the train. We got off after about 15 minutes, arriving at a popular pub known for its delicious seafood. We livened up the place with random chats, and as the drinks flowed, I was wrapped in a fluffy sense of joy. After a while, I checked the time, and nearly 2 hours had passed. Wanting to sober up a bit, I headed to the restroom. The pub was bustling at 8 p.m. Every seat was filled. As I was looking around, intrigued by this first-time visit, a familiar voice caught my ear. Involuntarily, I paid attention. The voice seemed to be berating someone. Contrary to my desire to leave immediately, my body was moving toward the source of the voice. It was a strange feeling, as if my body wasn't my own. Everyone in the seminar knew, even though she tried to hide it. If she weren't the CEO's daughter, no one would date such a plain girl. At the table of 4 men in suits, there was the person I expected. She works in a factory, but is she really the CEO's daughter? She dresses so plain. I never feel like taking her to a nice restaurant. Maybe if she invited me to her family's mansion, I'd be a little motivated. I couldn't comprehend what the familiar and beloved voice was saying. Cooper noticed me standing still. He seemed quite drunk, his eyes fixed. His resentment and hatred for me came through clearly, and I couldn't move. Do you think you're worth something? The only thing you have is your status as the CEO's daughter. Cooper, glaring at me, didn't seem to realize I was actually there. With unsteady steps, Cooper approached me. He tilted the glass in his right hand and poured beer over me. The liquid that had filled the glass drenched my hair and face. Droplets fell, wetting the floor. What a waste of years being with you. Let's break up. Ugh, I'll break up with you. All I could do was nod at Cooper's loud declaration. Quietly moving away from Cooper with my dirtied face, I told my colleagues that I'd be heading home first. Luckily, they were all tipsy and didn't seem to care. As I left the restaurant, the cool night air touched my cheeks. The droplets in my hair cooled down, the chill reaching my scalp as if to freeze it. Feeling hesitant to get on the train like this, I reluctantly called for a car. When I was appointed CEO, my father had given me a personal vehicle. The driver assigned to me was someone I had known since childhood, and the car was familiar. I was looking at the national highway filled with cars, wanting to relax in the familiar seat. Then, the entrance of the pub opened, and someone came out. You're still here? Looking so shabby. Really pathetic. Held up by what was probably a colleague, there was Cooper, unstable on his feet. My heart was torn to shreds. I couldn't take any more of Cooper's words. Such violent words. Sorry to keep you waiting, CEO. A voice came from behind me. Cooper looked at me, eyes wide. Please, get in here. Prompted to the back seat, I moved my feet. Wait a minute. That was a joke. You should have told me if you were appointed CEO. Let's keep going out. I saw Cooper desperately trying to convince me over my shoulder. I felt nothing. If anything, a faint sense of disgust. The CEO is tired. Please leave. Once the driver confirmed I was in, he closed the door. As the car started moving, my tears burst forth. They kept flowing, running down from my chin, dropping onto my lap. What did I ever love about him? I didn't know he was that kind of person. After a good cry, my heart began to settle, and suddenly, I thought it was my fault. Staying as lovers without showing my true self was an unreasonable story. Thinking so, my feelings began to lighten. Wiping the tears with a handkerchief, I turned my eyes outside the window. Clouds were passing across the starry sky. It felt as if I was at the bottom of the sea, the comfort of drifting, surrendering to the gentle sway of the waves. I thought about my colleagues at the factory, and then about Austin. Being accepted for who I am feels really reassuring. Rubbing my swollen eyes from crying too much, I fell asleep, just like that. A year and a half has passed since I became CEO. Even after my transfer to the head office, every time I felt nostalgic, I visited the factory under the pretext of inspection. Today, too, I'm visiting with some gifts. It's just like you, Lydia, to say it's tough, but carry on without a problem. I'm impressed. That's not true. I'm always being supported. Spreading out the snacks I brought, I felt a smile spreading across my face. Even after becoming CEO, my colleagues at the factory still call me Lydia. It feels like I've come home. As I was basking in happiness, Austin started a conversation. By the way, what should we do about our honeymoon? Suddenly, he brought up something personal, and I looked around in surprise. The colleagues I was chatting with earlier seemed to have returned to their workstations. Be careful! We haven't announced it yet. After my transfer, we became even closer from frequent visits to the factory, started dating, and finally got engaged last month. It's okay. I checked and no one's around. Where do you want to go? Do you prefer overseas? I'd like to go to the sea. My mouth moved before I could think. Why was that? I had always thought that if I were to go with Austin, I'd want to go to the sea. If it's the sea, an island might be nice too. I'll look it up. Austin laughed as I said, I'm looking forward to it. I wonder what color the sea will be as I sit on the beach with Austin in the bright light. Just imagining it makes my heart flutter and my cheeks relax into a smile.